Hey, what's up guys, it's Branj along with the Farcaster community, and I got a gripe with MHNow that I kinda have to get off my chest. Drift smelting is basically the worst, most player-unfriendly system that they introduced into this game, even if it does give us a bump in damage to our builds. Drift smelting was introduced towards the end of the Vernal Invader season, otherwise known as Season 1. As a little brief history, before smelting, buildcrafting was kind of boring for the most part. Just assemble 5 pieces of armor without being able to modify anything. Elemental builds were still stronger than their raw counterparts, but still kinda sucked since they required 3 pieces to assemble element attack 5. And the third piece usually wasn't that great. It was a pretty boring system, but then drift smelting came along and introduced some new life into build crafting. Using the table Niantic provided, we can target farm specific monsters, get them to drop a specific flavor of stone, which contained either elemental attack skill, another damage support skill, and then aggressive dodger in the 3rd skill guaranteed. Then you had to choose the armor you wanted to roll the smelt on, and then you had to either walk a distance of 5 kilometers or buy an instant-smelt solution for 60 gems. This solution introduced a lot of problems, but most people, myself included, were just excited to have a system to further improve our gear. Now we were able to smelt elemental attack on one of our element 2 gear, and we cut out that shitty 3rd armor slot to give us something with a little more damage, like Critical Eye 2 or Weakness Exploit 2. But how rare is it to even get the elemental smelt that you needed? According to MHN.quest, each gold skill has a 3.33% chance at dropping, and then each white skill has a 5% chance at dropping, while also including unique white skills like Skyward Striker, which we'll get into later. The first major issue with smelting is having to choose the armor before applying the smelt. What happens if you're looking for Crit Eye but you find an Ice Attack? Well, guess what? Unless that piece also randomly works in your Ice Attack build, that highly sought after roll is completely useless to you. And remember when I said gold skills have a 3.33% chance at dropping? Theoretically, you should get the skill you want in 1 in 30 rolls, right? Well, sure, if you're the Discord mod Anna, it should work that way. But for everybody else, you just better hope that you're on the right side of variance. Because 1 in 30 can feel like 1 in 150 very quickly. I'm going with the assumption that Niantic doesn't have any malicious skill waiting in the background to keep you playing and spending, but honestly I wouldn't be remotely surprised if there were. But don't worry guys, Niantic is gracious enough to give us a little bit of bad luck protection. It's too bad that the bad luck protection fucking sucks too. Every time you smelt a stone, you will get a shard back in return. And when you accumulate 100 shards, you could turn that in for a drift gem. Oh, wow. Which contains only the 3 gold skills. So now you turn that 3.3% chance into a 33.3% chance to roll the skill that you need. But oh boy, does it feel bad when you miss on that drift gem. Even worse when you miss on that drift gem 2 or 3 times in a row. These individual skills are so rare that you can make it all the way through the 100 shards and still never smelt the skill that you're looking for, and then buy a gem and still miss on it, repeating the cycle until Niantic finally blesses you. This cycle then gets even more complicated if you're, say, an SNS main and you're looking for a Skyward Striker, since that's like the secret sauce for Sword and Shield. Since Skyward Striker is a white skill, it can only be found specifically in the Cyan Driftstones, not even from the gems. Even if you miss 100 times, there's no chance to roll better dice to get what you're looking for. And if that isn't bad enough, the drop rate of Driftstones certainly feel like they're a little bit too rare for the rate. A few weeks back, I went out biking to hit every single Cyan monster that I could find, and I was finding Cyan Stones the same rate I was hatching rocks. I was planning to insmelt the 9th rock and keep the fun times going, but my rates that day were so bad. I don't think we have the official Driftstone drop rate, but it feels like it's about 1 in 10. But man, it really feels bad when it's about 1 in 20 or 25. At that point, I'm not even killing monsters that I enjoy fighting, and it just feels like I'm wasting my time when I go out to kill 10 or 20 monsters in a row and don't get a single Cyan stone to drop out of it. Now, let's get into the event-specific stones. So far, we've had one really good Driftstone event, one kind of okay event, and one that felt really bad. The first one, we got a stone for crit boost and dragon attack. This was an extremely solid stone, even though crit boost and dragon attack generally don't play well together, but that was pretty fine. Crit boost offered a nice DPS boost for those like myself who are leaning very heavily into affinity at the time, and it offers even more utility today with the current crit element meta. And Dragon was good for getting Dragon 5 since we previously did not 3, but 4 pieces to obtain that. Next event gets a little dicey. We got Part Breaker and Blast Attack Stones. Part Breaker is cool, but I don't really hold much value in it personally. Blast Attack was a weird choice since Teostar only dropped in the game a week prior, like not even a week, like I think it was like 4 days before the Driftstone event Teostar dropped. So it kind of just felt like a scummy cash grab move by Niantic to make people rush around and whale Teostra so they can grade 8 their gear, so that they could then whale the event so they get Blast Attack on all of their Teostra gear. And not gonna lie, I don't think anyone even uses Blast Attack melds either, so that whole event kind of just felt like bait. And then we get the third event, which I have some beef with myself. Driftstone C held all 5 of the elemental attack stones. This is a cool concept in theory, but executed really poorly. You would think that if there were 5 gold stones, the gold rates would be higher, right? As mentioned earlier, gold stone rates are 3.3%, so if we have 5 golds, that's a little over 15% to hit a gold. I did my own testing on the drop rates and hatched 100 stones during this event, and I recorded my gold to white ratio during this time. Out of 100 stones I hatched, a whopping 4 of them were gold skills. That is a whopping 4% rate. There is no way that you can end up with 4% if all 3 of them had been 3.3%. So they definitely reduced the individual rates down to match the rates of normal stones. Only Niantic knows the actual rates, but I firmly believe that the rates for the stones were about 2% each, with a total of 10% for a gold skill. And I just ended up on the wrong side of variance as usual. These rates only get even sadder for anyone who wanted to farm 1 or 2 of the Dragon Attack smelts if they missed the last event. If the individual stones are 2% and the Drift Gem was 20%, their odds are even worse than normal to get the gold skill they were looking for. I had a dream to put as many of the elemental skills on my bubbly set, so that it could become more of a universal set, but that died pretty damn quick. So now let's review and see what it's like when you're on the wrong side of variance. Let's say you're looking for Crit Eye for your fancy new Carnival chest. You now have to go out and target farm Puke and Rathian, sometimes Legiana, in hopes that they drop a Cyan Stone. Sometimes you get lucky and get a couple of drops and then a few kills. Sometimes you get another stone after the 20th kill. And then you keep insta-smelting your stones, but still getting nothing back that you're looking for. After another 500 to 1,000 kills later, and 100 stones down the drain, you still don't have the skill that you're looking for, and your only saving grace is that Drift Gem for 100 shards. You finally have enough shards to buy that Drift Gem, and you now have a 1 in 3 chance of rolling Crit Eye. Ah darn, it's Ice Attack. Would have been nice to have that on my Barioth arms, but oh well. Add it to the pile of useless gold skills that you've accumulated on this armor as a badge of suffering. Is your will to keep going broken yet? No? Good. Now start farming 100 Cyan Stones and hope that you get lucky before getting enough for that next Drift Gem. Better fill up on gems too, since some of you will be insta-smelting to keep your pot at 8 out of 9 slots. Another 50 stones later? Nice! You finally got that Crit Eye to drop. Ugh, it feels so good to finally get exactly what you were looking for. Wait, what? Critical Element is the new meta? In order to make full use of this sick build, you need 2 more Critical Eye smelts? Well, time to start the cycle all over again. But you can't be this unlucky twice in a row, right? Spoiler alert, you can be. This is exactly where I'm at with my current Critical Element build. And while I'm trying my best to optimize so that I can improve my speedrun times, I just don't have the will to keep farming the game like this. Now, let's take the whole scenario I just described, and let's add a layer of FOMO on top of it. Let's say you aren't looking for Critical Eye, but instead you're looking for whatever the Event Driftstone is. That means that now, instead of doing this over the course of however many weeks, you have 1 week to go through this whole process, and boy would it feel so bad if you miss when you put all of that work to get it. How would I personally improve the system? I have a couple of ideas on how I would improve the system. Even a single one of these would greatly improve the system and make it a lot more rewarding to go out and hunt for these smelts. And I'm going to give a couple of examples, but I'm not saying all of these need to be incorporated, but even just a single one of these would make it feel better. This one's more of an honorable mention, but just increase the stone drop rates. I'm sure they're kind of low just to get you to spend carving knives on drift stones, but let's be real, nobody actually does that. Just increase the drop rates and let whales farm and spend money on your game. This isn't one of the main ideas that would improve smelting experience, but I would still like to see this. The first major idea is, let us smelt the rock and then allocate the skill. It feels like such a tremendous waste to get a gold skill that you really need but on the wrong piece. This would make it at least feel good to still miss on the skill that you're really looking for. Honestly, in my opinion, this is probably the most toxic part of just smelting in general. The second one is, when we smelt a stone, instead of guaranteed 1 shard per rock, maybe give us between 1 and 3, kind of like how Winged Drakes and Shamos drop between 1 and 3 of their respective rarity 1 drops. Can even give us a super rare 10 drop if they're generous, but even giving us between 1 and 3 shards per smelted stone is fine. The third one is, just let us choose the Drift Gem skill. It is the most defeating feeling to miss non-stop for 100 rolls on the skill that you're looking for, and then miss on the Drift Gem too. At least give our bad luck protection a little bit of protection from even worse bad luck. And the fourth one, finally, is, even if it costs gems, a feature that allows us to swap skills between armor. It really goes without explaining, but I would happily pay for this, even if it costed upwards to like 1,000 gems to make a swap. And one more note to finish this video on. Can we just talk about how the stone skills have not changed at all since they were introduced? I know they introduced blast resistance to the list, so they are clearly capable of it. We're getting new fun skills every season, so why are we still restricted to the same basic skills we've had since launch? Resuscitate, Fighting Spirit, Latent Power. They can't just keep saving all these new skills for driftstone events and then drip feed us the events so hard. Season 3 has had one single driftstone event, and it didn't even introduce any new skills to smelting. Let's see a revamp of the tables and maybe change up the stone table altogether. Alright, and that's basically all my feelings on drift smelting at the moment. I just want Buildcraft to be more fun and engaging, and not such a slog that it is right now. Hopefully you guys end up on the right side of variance, and I'll be rooting for me from all the way down here. See ya!